Hi, this is Leah Gaines again, and this is part 2 of the presentation of my capstone project covering the flipped math classroom. So in part 1, I gave an introduction of what my classroom looks like and why I decided to research and create flipped lessons. And then we looked at the research surrounding the flipped classroom model. So now we'll move on to the lessons I created for this research on the flipped classroom. So these lessons more or less are just inquiry lessons that I use daily in the classroom. But they give you a rundown of the I guess, topics we cover within the classroom for the day. So this first lesson, well, let me take a minute to explain how we got to this point in the lesson. So the first half of chapter 3 kind of covered algebraic reasoning and graphing, and then the second part of chapter 3 covered mostly equation solving skills. So you'll see the objectives for this lesson I have pulled up right here. Review and practice equation solving skills, learn how to check their answer. So then there's the standards and practices and everything that we do in class. But of course none of that includes the video that I did. So you'll notice for closure, all we do is just quickly discuss their findings and I pass out homework. I mean, we actually never really end up with the 5 minutes that I've allotted to that part of the lesson because, you know, they get into good conversations, we get into good conversations, and I don't want to stop them and kind of interrupt this great thinking they're doing with some sort of direct instruction. So then that's where the video kind of comes into play. I give them, you know, a homework worksheet, but in addition to that, they need to watch a video. So let me go back and we'll just watch the video from here. So they watched a solving equations reviewing video. And let me turn the sound off on this so that you don't hear me twice. But as you can see, I started with example problems that some of them they had already done in the book once, but I just wanted them to have a better review of what was going on. So as you see, I used this screencast-o-matic again, but also I have a software where I can actually write on the computer screen as I was explaining the topics to them. So this is how each of the videos go. I'm either reviewing a topic or kind of building on a topic that they've already been doing in class. So for example, this goes with the first lesson, and this is just the steps that they use when they're solving an equation. So you can see I told them, you know, start with combining like terms, and then over here we're talking about, you know, what can we combine, what does that come out to. And then all I asked the students to do was either on their homework or on a piece of notebook paper, just take notes on what, or I guess I didn't ask the students to do this yet. What I will ask the students to do is take notes on this video, and you know, I'll just check that at the beginning of class. So that kind of shows what you know, what the videos look like that I made. And so I'll just give you kind of a quick rundown of why I chose the videos that I did. So all of these lessons listed here they all sort of cover and continue to review equation solving skills. So the first two go through equation solving. This one's about just solving equations. This one's about the different answers you get, such as like no solution, all real numbers, things like that. Then what I decided to do for these two, these continue with equation solving, but in my actual classroom, I noticed that the students were lacking in certain areas on the quiz they took on the first part of the chapter. So I chose in these two lessons to make the video a review of those places where they had weakness, um, because obviously there was something missing there. So these lessons don't actually um, directly relate to these videos. So I'm kind of wondering how that would turn out if they're watching something they didn't do in class that day, but I do think it would be a good review. So that's kind of my rationale behind, what I did. I wanted to get in some more review from the graphing, and maybe when I implement this, I'll take these graphing videos and move them up into, the first part of the chapter. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, so far that's where we are. Those are my lessons, and those are the videos. And I actually just uploaded the videos to the Screencast-O-Matic website. We don't have access to YouTube, or the students don't have access to YouTube at school. So I wanted to make sure that I chose a website to post them on that the students would be able to access at school. So that's where these links lead you to. So those are the lessons that I came up with. And then on to my reflection. So overall, I would say that this has had a huge positive impact on my teaching. And the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to the impact is this amazing thing that happened when I went to actually create those videos I just showed you. What happened was I sat down and, as a teacher, I've been in the classroom for a few years. I felt very confident sitting down and just, giving a lesson. I didn't practice it a whole lot. I had an idea of what I wanted to say. And when all was said and done, I made almost a 15-minute long video the first time I sat down. And I was actually surprised by that because, I had spent a lot of time as a sub, watching how other teachers taught, thinking about how I wanted to teach. When I was getting my certification, I was really cognizant of making sure that I wasn't being overly wordy or explaining things too much in my classes. So when I taught, I thought that I was a very concise, very direct teacher. But I sat down, to make this video, and it was reaching the 15-minute limit, and I hadn't finished saying what I needed to say. So I write this right here. I thought to myself, okay, I need to ask myself some questions about this because obviously, I don't know something about my teaching that I should know. So I needed to think, what information did I need to convey to the students in this video? Obviously, I was saying way too much. No one's going to sit there, and my research supported that no one would sit there for 15 minutes and watch this video, especially not an 8th grade student. So what information was I trying to convey? How should I present it? So I just kind of started out like I do in my regular classroom where I write the problems on the board. But I realized, with my ability to actually write on, the screen capture software, it was taking forever and it was ridiculous. And then how could I guide what I wrote on the screen so students could actually take neat, helpful notes? So I thought through those things, and I decided, how I was going to make this video as directed and as useful to the students as possible. And I wanted to keep it, 5 minutes or under. A lot of the research said, you get to 10 minutes, you start losing them. But, with 8th grade students, especially with introducing something new like this to them, I just didn't want to go over 5 minutes. And I realized that I didn't need longer than 5 minutes. 5 minutes was actually plenty of time for me to target what I wanted to say to them and how I wanted them to take notes on it. So that was a big revelation for me, just realizing that, being forced to record what you do on video makes you realize how much you repeat yourself when you're doing sort of a lecture type lesson, and how unnecessary that is. Sure, I'm repeating myself right now. So, and then from that, I just sort of tie my research into, what I learned when I was making my lessons. And I talked about this earlier in part 1 when I talked about my research, but I'll just give this a quick rundown. I refer to an article called Byron's Flipped Classrooms, which is a city called Byron where they actually flipped their classrooms because they couldn't afford textbooks, and now it's one of the most sought after districts to teach in and learn in their community. Um, these are just that was just a strong story for me. I mean, hearing that was pretty amazing. And then there's another one where it's just called Flip Your Students Learning, and it says freed from delivering whole class instruction during that hour or so, the teacher can deliver targeted instruction to students one-on-one or in small groups, help those who struggle, and challenge those who have mastered content. And that's exactly what I was able to do. And there are those Sams and Bergman guys again. And that's exactly what I was able to do. I mean, I was already doing that in the inquiry model, but being able to completely eliminate any moment where I needed to bring the class together really gave me the chance to really get in there and be working in their groups with them. And then lastly, let's see, we've got an article called What Did Teachers Who Flip Their Classrooms Have to Report? And this just says that 88% of teachers who use the flipped classroom model report an improvement in their students' attitudes, and I think that is something that will certainly happen in my classroom because um, you know, they're having a hard time with this transition to the Common Core, to this inquiry learning, and I think that, having this sort of support and basis will really um, be huge for them. So that is my capstone project, and that was my PLN that we um, went through. So overall, I think a positive experience. I learned a lot. I'm excited to implement a kind of a modified flipped classroom model within my inquiry classroom. So thank you for listening, and good night.